Trump shocks America with a 200% wine tariff. How will Americans react? Can you imagine walking into a supermarket one day and realizing your favorite bottle of wine now costs 3 times as much? This is no longer a hypothetical scenario. Trump has just announced a staggering 200% tariff on wine and champagne from Europe, a decision that has sent shockwaves across the country, pushing millions of Americans into even greater financial strain as prices continue to soar. Trump sparks controversy with a 200% tariff. Look at this number, 200% tariffs on imported European wine. This isn't just a small increase, it's a massive shock to the wine industry and millions of American consumers. The decision came immediately after the European Union, EU, imposed a 50% tariff on American whiskey. In response, Trump struck back aggressively, imposing the highest ever import taxes on European wine, champagne, and alcoholic beverages. But this isn't just about trade dispute. It directly affects a crucial voting bloc: suburban middle-class women, a demographic that played a major role in the last election. Backlash from women voters. When wine is no longer an easy choice. Think about it. Wine has long been a staple in the daily lives of millions of Americans, especially housewives, middle-class families, and business professionals. Now, with this new tariff, the price of imported wine could triple. What does this mean? A French wine bottle that used to cost $15 may now be $45 or more. Restaurants, bars, and liquor stores will face higher costs, leading to steep price hikes. Women voters, a key electoral group, are feeling the direct impact. So here's the question: will this decision cost Trump's support among suburban voters? Because the reality is, these voters were instrumental in past elections. Now, they are facing price surges not only in wine, but in a wide range of products due to the ripple effects of this trade war. The economy takes a hit, the dangerous escalation of the tariff war. Trump's decision isn't just affecting wine lovers, it's having serious consequences for the U.S. economy. In the past few days, the stock market has taken a major hit. The Dow Jones dropped 350 points in a single day, wiping out 1% of its market value. NASDAQ fell by more than 1%, signaling investor panic. Economic experts warn if the trade war escalates, the U.S. economy could face an even deeper recession. But why is the market reacting so strongly? Because businesses and investors crave stability, not uncertainty. An endless tariff war could lead to sharp increases in consumer prices, disruptions in global supply chains, difficulties for American businesses exporting goods due to retaliatory tariffs. So, will Trump adjust his strategy to prevent further economic damage? Trump refuses to back down, despite market panic. What have we seen so far? A growing trade war, a plummeting economy, and voter anxiety. Yet, Trump remains firm in his stance. When asked about the economic fallout, he declared, "We don't need their wine. They need us, not the other way around." He insists that America can produce everything it needs, despite the fact that the U.S. economy still heavily relies on global supply chains. But there's a major problem. The U.S. does not currently produce enough wine to replace European imports. American wineries cannot make the surge in demand overnight. Domestic production costs are higher, which means U.S.-made wine prices will also increase. In other words, Americans will still pay more, whether they buy imported or domestic wine. The consequences of Trump's trade policy. How much more can Americans endure? The truth is, Trump's tariff decisions aren't new. But this time, they are hitting the wallets of millions of Americans directly. Consider this: food prices have already surged dramatically in recent months. The cost of living is rising while wages remain stagnant. Investors are panicking, causing further stock market losses. Will this be a turning point for independent voters who are now reconsidering their stance? Don't look away, because what happens next might just shock you. After Canada announced a $760 billion USD plan to retaliate against Trump's tariffs, the EU quickly responded with a $40 billion USD retaliatory tariff package. Is this the beginning of a global trade war? The European Union didn't take long to respond. Right after President Trump imposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, the EU quickly introduced a €26 billion retaliatory tariff package, equivalent to about $40 billion US dollars. Then were the Canadas. They've been very quick and very strict, announcing retaliatory duties on industrial and farm products totaling 26 billion euros. The products targeted include industrial items like machinery, cars, and agricultural goods like fruits, vegetables, and wine. Recently, The EU has imposed tariffs on over 2,800 U.S. products, including items like Levi's jeans, whiskey, and Boeing spacecraft. U.S. businesses, particularly in agriculture and industry, will face significant losses due to the loss of export markets. And not only that, they will also face increased production costs. Trade between Canada and the EU has grown by 7% since the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, took effect. A wave of Canadian businesses has quickly taken advantage of this agreement, shifting from the U.S. to potential markets in Europe and Asia. What will the future hold for U.S. businesses? Mexico, one of the U.S.'s largest trade partners and the second largest steel exporter, has chosen a slow and steady approach in its response. They didn't rush to impose retaliatory measures immediately. The Mexican government, under President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, decided to negotiate and seek a peaceful solution. But at the same time, they didn't rule out the possibility of imposing tariffs on U.S. goods if necessary. However, Mexico isn't just facing the impact of U.S. tariffs, but also dealing with a decline in exports and the escalating trade tensions that could greatly affect its economy. Analysts forecast that Mexico's steel industry will need to reduce output, while the agricultural sector will face significant challenges, dealing with higher tariffs on products like tomatoes and avocados. The situation in Brazil is not much different. As the second largest steel exporter to the U.S., Brazil is trying to find a way to respond to this decision. Brazil's finance minister, Fernando Haddad, criticized the U.S. tariffs as unreasonable and wrong, and declared that they would seek legal measures at the World Trade Organization, WTO. However, like Mexico, Brazil has decided not to rush into retaliation, but instead will patiently pursue negotiation options to avoid escalating tensions. Tariff retaliations not only affect the partner countries, but also have a significant impact on U.S. businesses. The steel industry will be one of the most affected sectors, as the new tariffs will raise the cost of imported steel, increasing production costs in U.S. factories. This not only drives up product prices, but also diminishes the competitiveness of U.S. products in the international market. The EU has shown strength in this decision and has not hesitated to respond forcefully. Is to counterbalance the base trade value affected by the U.S. tariffs while minimizing the impact on European businesses and consumers. But the disruption caused by tariffs is avoidable if the U.S. administration accepts so. However, the issue is not just about the tariffs, but also the political relationship. EU countries have agreed that the U.S. tariff policy not only has a negative impact on the global economy, but also disrupts stability in international trade relations. Stay tuned, because the twists and turns could impact you. Could Canada really deliver a true shock to the North American electric vehicle industry? Canada's proposal to impose a 100% tariff on Tesla EVs is not just a simple trade response. It could be a turning point for the future of the electric vehicle industry. Let's dive in and explore how this move could impact Tesla and the global EV market. And we'll break down the economic consequences it could have for both the US and Canada. Canada responds to Trump imposes high tariffs on Tesla. First, let's take a look at the reasoning behind this decision from Canada. The NDP, although not the ruling party, holds significant influence in Parliament. By calling for a 100% tariff on Tesla EVs, this move isn't just retaliation for U.S. tax policies. It also carries a strategic goal, protecting the domestic EV industry and pushing for a transition to a clean economy. If this tariff is applied, the price of Tesla cars in Canada will skyrocket, making it more difficult for Canadians to own an electric vehicle. But it's not just about this tariff. Tesla, despite having factories in the U.S. and China, still relies on parts imported from China. And if Trump decides to impose additional tariffs on these parts, Tesla will face a double challenge: tariffs from both sides, the U.S. and Canada. This not only impacts product pricing, but could also slow down production and development in both countries, causing significant damage to the company and consumers alike. This move doesn't just affect Tesla. It will also have a major impact on the entire North American EV industry. With EV prices rising due to high tariffs, many consumers will reconsider their purchase decisions. In fact, as EV prices climb, the momentum for transitioning to electric vehicles, which is a key part of the US and Canada's CO2 reduction strategy, will slow down. The EV industry, which has been strongly supported by government initiatives, could face setbacks in achieving environmental protection goals. The electric vehicle trade war, implications for the US EV industry and the global economy. If this policy is implemented, it won't just impact Tesla, but all electric vehicle manufacturers, including Ford and General Motors. In North America, many companies depend on parts imported from China to produce electric vehicles. If tariffs on these parts increase, these companies will face higher production costs, causing the price of electric vehicles to rise as well. But this doesn't just affect EV companies. The global supply chain, which is already complex and tightly interconnected, will face significant disruption. Suppliers of parts from China, South Korea, and Japan will be impacted, leading to rising costs for electronic components and other critical vehicle parts. If this trade war continues, we could see the North American EV industry struggle and even slow down the global transition to electric vehicles. However, this is the moment we need to think about the benefits of resolving conflict. If the US and Canada can find a reasonable solution to ease tensions, it won't just protect North American EV companies, but also promote the sustainable development of this industry. As the supply chain improves and the EV market grows, consumers will benefit from more affordable vehicle prices, and the transition to clean energy will accelerate. Resolving trade tensions is not only beneficial for EV companies, but it's an opportunity for North American countries to strengthen their position in the global market. By cooperating and reducing tariffs, we can speed up the adoption of electric vehicles and help the world transition to a greener economy, protecting the environment and creating new economic opportunities. So what do you think about this situation? Can the US and Canada find a reasonable solution to ease tensions and continue developing the EV industry? Or will we witness a breakdown in the global supply chain? Amid an unprecedented energy crisis, the EU faces gas prices that have soared over 100% with unstable supplies. With Russian gas once making up nearly 40% of imports, the region is under pressure. Now, the US has imposed tariffs that add roughly 10% to the cost of Canada's natural gas, aiming to force Canada to shift its LNG exports to the EU. Is this bold move the key to resolving the crisis or just a strategic play? As the EU faces an unprecedented crisis, with gas prices surging by over 100% and supplies disrupted, the situation has become extremely urgent. Political and economic motives. Leveraging its considerable economic and political clout, the US has opted to impose new tariffs on Canada's natural gas. Some estimates suggest these tariffs add roughly 10% to the final cost, putting pressure on Canada to shift its LNG exports to the EU, where demand is skyrocketing amid the energy crunch. Impact on the EU market. This imposition opens up opportunities for the EU to access an alternative energy source, thereby reducing its historical reliance on traditional supplies such as Russian gas and US LNG. This shift is seen as a crucial step in the ongoing strategy to diversify energy sources and enhance energy security across the region. International relations impact. Simultaneously, this move reaffirms the US's leverage in international trade policies, sparking renewed debates about the role and influence of tariff measures in reshaping the global economic order. In this increasingly tense environment, Canada has rapidly established itself as a strategic partner in the LNG sector, abundant reserves and political stability. With vast natural gas reserves and a stable political landscape, Canada offers a secure and sustainable energy source. LNG Canada Project, a strategic lever. The landmark LNG Canada project, backed by an estimated $40 billion investment, is expected to deliver up to 14 million tons per annum. MTPA of LNG once fully operational. This initiative is projected to create thousands of jobs and significantly boost Canada's contribution to the global LNG supply. Geographical advantage. Canada's strategic location allows LNG to be easily transported across the Atlantic to the EU, while also opening up shipping routes to Asia via the Pacific. This flexibility enables Canada to establish diverse export channels, reducing risks associated with reliance on a single pathway. Historically, the U.S. reigned as the dominant force in the global LNG market, boasting massive production capacities and an extensive export network. However, recent shifts have eroded this advantage. Weakening of the U.S. LNG sector. Domestic policy uncertainties and the newly imposed tariff measures have reportedly reduced the competitiveness of U.S. LNG by an estimated 15% in key markets. The rise of Canada and Mexico. As the U.S. grapples with these challenges, Canada has seized the opportunity to solidify its market position. Furthermore, countries like Mexico are aggressively investing in their LNG infrastructure, with plans to expand their LNG production capacity by over 20% in the coming years, intensifying the competition. Competition on quality and cost. This fierce rivalry is pushing all LNG suppliers to innovate, optimize technology, and refine contract terms. The aim is to reduce shipping costs and enhance economic efficiency, ensuring that the energy needs of demanding markets are met. Long-term impact. The evolving competitive landscape is not only reshaping the current LNG market share, but also influencing long-term strategies for sustainable energy development, where flexibility and adaptability remain key to future success. In recent months, the relationship between the U.S. and Canada has become more tense, especially after President Donald Trump imposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports from Canada. This decision not only affects Canada's industries, but also undermines the long-standing trade relationship between the two neighboring countries. This tariff has sparked concerns about the competitiveness of Canadian businesses in the global market and has escalated trade tensions. But this is just the beginning. Trump has made provocative statements about Canada's sovereignty, even threatening to annex Canada into the U.S. These comments have deeply insulted Canadians and made them feel threatened about their independence and national sovereignty. Amid these threats and pressure from Trump, the Canadian people chose not to accept these attacks on their sovereignty and values. They responded by launching a powerful grassroots boycott campaign, not just against American goods, but also against U.S. tourism. Canadian businesses and consumers began cutting back on spending on American products, choosing to support Canadian-made goods instead. From major supermarkets and shopping centers to small local stores, Canadians made a collective decision to avoid American goods. Not only did they stop buying American products, but they also canceled planned trips to the U.S. This campaign is not just a reaction to Trump's policies. It's a clear stand against disrespect and a way for Canadians to protect their national values. This movement has spread quickly, sending a powerful message that Canada will not be intimidated. The power of the people is undeniable, and this boycott has become a symbol of resistance. Canada's boycott campaign has had significant economic repercussions for the U.S. states that heavily rely on Canadian tourists, such as Florida, Texas, and New York, are experiencing substantial losses in tourism revenue. Canadians, who have long been some of the largest foreign visitors to the U.S., have started to reduce or completely stop traveling to the U.S. Estimates show that even a 10% decrease in Canadian tourists could result in the loss of 140,000 jobs and a $2 billion hit to the U.S. tourism industry. It's not just tourism. American brands, from Kentucky bourbon to consumer goods, are also feeling the impact. Canadians are choosing to purchase Canadian-made products instead, signaling their growing discontent with Trump's policies. This boycott is having tangible effects on the U.S. economy, especially in sectors dependent on Canadian consumers. This is more than just a trade war. Canada's boycott has become a symbol of unity and a stand for national sovereignty. Every time Trump makes provocative comments, Canadians become more determined to protect their values. The strength of this grassroots boycott is clear. It's not only about avoiding American goods, but it's also about resisting a government that disrespects Canada's sovereignty. The solidarity seen in Canada today is sending a clear message to the world. Canada will never bow down to threats from a country like the U.S. From empty supermarkets to deserted tourist attractions, Canadians have shown that the power of collective resistance can shift the course of this trade conflict. This is a lesson on protecting national interests, no matter the pressure from a larger neighbor like the U.S. The trade war between the U.S. and Canada goes beyond tariffs and shocking statements. It's a fight for sovereignty, respect, and the unity of the people. Every consumer choice and every canceled trip is a bold statement from Canada that they will never yield to threats and disrespect from the President of the United States. This is a turning point, and Canada is ready to defend its future.